Good morning, afternoon, or evening, ladies and gentlemen, all in crypto here, and welcome back, guys, for another daily cryptocurrency market update. Every single day at 1 p.m., if you're new around here, we release a market update where we don't just look at the cryptocurrency markets and things happening internally with our market. We look further afield and we look at markets across the board to try and help us work out what's happening and where our space is heading. Now, you guys know that I'm unbelievably bullish on the future prospects of blockchain technology and thus the crypto space. And we are starting to see crypto become recognized as a asset class. And of course, we know all the drama that's happened with the SEC. We think largely the SEC is going to lose its power grab. It will perhaps take some casualties, but ultimately, if you look at what's unfolded since the lawsuit and the backlashes, it's pretty shocking. Everything from the Hinman documents to the SEC council having to go in front of Congress again and them getting a real grilling on the kind of lack of anything that the SEC is giving on not just the crypto space, but multiple different regulated topics. So really what I want to do in this video is start things off with a clip from BlackRock CEO Larry Fink talking about Bitcoin. This is very recent, and actually this is why they filed for a spot Bitcoin ETF, because the demand is there. If that spot ETF gets approved, we've looked at what has happened to prior asset classes like gold and the S&P after having a spot ETF approved, whether it's gold in 2004 in the UK, or sorry, the US, they had an ETF actually in Australia, I think in 2003, or whether it's the S&P in 1994. It's a big deal because it opens up a huge pool of capital that perhaps couldn't get access to Bitcoin because of its unregulated status. So I want to start things off with a clip of Larry Fink. We're then going to look at some more news in regards to companies. And actually, we had news yesterday that the SEC has allowed the launch of the first leveraged Bitcoin futures ETF in the United States, which kind of hints at a spot one coming. We have futures ETFs. We now have leveraged futures ETFs for Bitcoin. A spot ETF is something that we are missing. Then we'll look at the price. Isn't it very interesting how everything that was technically suggested has now been fundamentally verified? The narrative always comes after the technicals. The charts are your insider, ladies and gentlemen, because ultimately they are a representation of people's positions, money, and people are very zealous about protecting their money and positioning for any kind of narrative and news that is still to come out. We'll talk a little bit about, obviously, the Wagner news over in Russia. Geopolitics is not really my thing. However, you do need to watch all these things. It's part of being a macro analyzer, because this is ultimately going to probably affect the FX market going into next week. But we'll cover what next week looks like on Sunday in a little bit more detail. And then we're going to look at TrueUSD and what's happening there, which is currently a $3.1 billion stablecoin that there was a little bit of turbulence with in regards to Prime Trust potentially having a gap between actual reserves and what they owed, which is somehow linked to TrueUSD. But we'll talk about all that. Guys, let's start off with this clip from Larry Fink, and then we're going to explain why it's just such a big deal.
The hits on BlackRock's on our website was 3,000 on COVID, 3,000 hits on a monetary policy, and 600,000 hits on Bitcoin. So what that tells you is Bitcoin has caught the attention and the imagination of many people. Many people are fascinated about it. Many people are excited about it.
This is such a significant deal, the BlackRock ETF, largest asset manager in the world. Ultimately, the exciting thing for me, so I think altcoins will outperform Bitcoin eventually. And I am now more confident than ever that you are going to have altcoin ETFs, Ethereum ETF, some of the other layer one ETFs. That's all still to come in the future. And part of that journey is getting Bitcoin, our boy, through the door. In regards to it being opened up to the institutional world. If we look at Fidelity, if we look at BlackRock, who owns MicroStrategy, if we look at Bank of America, they bought MicroStrategy because they can't buy Bitcoin and they want that exposure. How many others are in a similar situation that maybe don't want to take the punt on MicroStrategy, that if they had the instruments and the tools to buy Bitcoin through an ETF, which is spot backed, the problem with, and we're going to look at a little bit of news that came out yesterday in regards to the SEC allowing for the first leveraged Bitcoin futures ETF. So why are they allowing all these futures ETF? Futures don't have to be backed by spot. Whereas a spot Bitcoin ETF, of course, is backed by spot. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. The ETF shares that you hold are redeemable for Bitcoin. And the more demand, the more shares come out, and so on and so forth. Futures don't work like that. So it's very suggestive with this recent approval and BlackRock's ratio of 572 spot ETF applications that have been approved versus the one that's been denied, that actually this is going to become a thing. And this is what we're looking at. This is going to be huge for Bitcoin. It's very pumpamental. Yes, I know there's casualties in regards to the kind of decentralized philosophy of you should own Bitcoin, you can custody it yourself. Why do you need BlackRock? But, you know, this is a big, big deal. And it's very interesting to us that technically we have been long literally since the 5th of January. All calls are public, by the way, guys. And we're looking at 41k target. And we've been fought at, oh, you're wrong, at every single pullback here. But we've said, no, things look bloody healthy. And the news is now supporting that narrative. You always get bearish news when things are going down. You always get bullish news when things are going up. It's part of media, you know, as a content creator, I know this. But what we try and do in these daily market updates is really kind of stay as vanilla as possible. You know, we want to look at things objectively rather than news oriented. And that's how we've been able to stay bullish and stick to our guns throughout this entirety. You know, Ethereum doing very well. This looks great. Altcoins still, you know, slightly elevated from January's levels, but still have got a lot of catch up to do. We're now looking at a double bottom scenario across the board there. But there's so much going on, guys. And part of BlackRock actually allowing an ETF is then pushing it. They did a similar thing with gold. You know, it became more of a part of people's portfolio once BlackRock had got involved. Bitcoin's going to do the same thing. And then you're going to get the kind of trickle down into altcoins. Bitcoin dominance is doing absolutely sensationally. You did indeed break out of this range, and now you are running. Where this tops is going to be interesting. Your alt season occurs when this goes down, but Bitcoin is still doing well, and altcoins are really aggressively running. We have a $5.1 trillion bank, French bank, that is now officially registered to offer Bitcoin custody services. The entire world is moving towards this, guys, and people are the FOMO that's going to occur. So not only do we have intrinsic FOMO for crypto, but the stock market, which is something we've been very, very accurate on in terms of its direction, we think this is going to new all-time highs. Not just because there's technical structure there, but because we actually understand the macro environment in association with rates. Fed funds rate, look at what happens when it stops. After an aggressive tightening cycle, you are going to get this again into likely a crash, which is probably what the yield curve is predicting. That doesn't come till later. The people that think that 2008 is literally here and we're about to drop have been saying that for a hell of a long time. This has been a lot of repricing due to rates, and now we're coming out the other side of it. There will be a crash, I would say, in 24 months' time or something like that when the yield curve inverts. But we have a macro backdrop now to support the crypto space. This is one reason we got long in crypto after being out in 2022. Was looking at the stock market and going, this is very interesting. Microsoft has been a poster child for what we think is going to happen. It's come into all-time highs. It's coming back. Having a rest at resistance. Watch what happens when this goes on and smashes all-time highs. They go on real runs. You want to look at what happens when people smash all-time highs? Go and look at NVIDIA. All-time high. You got a bit of resistance going into it, and then boom, because you're in price discovery. So all the stars are aligning, guys. This is absolutely a bull market. We've been very adamant about it. We did have some news, obviously. Putin accuses Wagner machineries of treason and vows to punish rebellion leaders. So I'm not a geopolitical analyst. However, I do know that this is going to have some repercussions in regards to the FX market. Potentially with euro strength, which might be bad for the dollar, which is really a headwind for markets generally, dollar strength. The yield markets are coming down. You know, we have assessed that this was the top. Trends often end in big moves. And now you're going to see a rolling for a number of reasons. Rates coming sideways, you know, the pressures the banking sector's under. It's interesting because Yellen's still reeling off the treasury or issuing bonds into the market, so the yields are going to be an interesting one. But we'll see. This is still a market that we're watching very closely. So I'm not really sure how all this Wagner news is going to affect things. Maybe good for the euro. We'll see. This doesn't look too bad, actually, for a little bit of dollar strength. But at the same time, there could be intrinsic news. I have a take, actually, on why Gensler's doing all this and why it's the US that are being so hostile towards crypto. And I actually think Jerome Powell's comments in front of Congress were very interesting when he said the best stablecoin basically is actually a US dollar CBDC. I think what they're trying to do for dollar dominance and dollar strength as a world reserve currency, they know what's happening with crypto. They may be trying to stall it a little bit so that they can actually get their CBDCs out and make that the dominant stablecoin. If you look at how much money is in the stablecoin market, you know, it's in nearly the hundreds of billions. That's set to grow exponentially. And that would really boost the US dollar and its status, certainly globally, through this tech. But I'm going to do an entirely different video on my theory with that. So we'll have to see what happens with the FX market. As far as Bitcoin's concerned, it's literally following the plans set out for it. Altcoins will follow. We are having some altcoins are having big moves now, which is quite positive. It's showing that they're strengthened, stronger moves than they've had whilst we've had this sort of pull-off period. Yeah, we assess everything. Looks good, guys. A little bit about the TrueUSD news. So they've essentially came out and assured people that they have no exposure to Prime Trust, which essentially had some discrepancies in regards to their reserves. Prime Trust has suspended all deposits of fiat and digital assets. TrueUSD is not affected by the situation. We have no exposure to Prime Trust and maintain multiple USD rails for minting and redemptions. Rest assured, all your funds are safe. Now, we know that they did actually pause minting, I think. However, there seems to be no issues here. And would a stablecoin going down be good or bad for crypto? Generally, well, it would be bad for anybody holding a stablecoin, but might see the likes of Bitcoin and others get a boost. This is something that we've seen play out time and time again. So that's really all I've got for you on this beautiful Saturday morning for me in regards to the crypto space. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Maybe you know a bit more than I do about the Wagner machineries and how that may affect the markets. And let me know, what do you think? You know, are you still on the sidelines with whether this is a bull or a bear, or are you very much now in line with what the channel's been saying for over 6 months now, nearly 7? And it wasn't an easy call getting back into the market. You got to remember, we stayed out and we mitigated FTX, we mitigated Celsius, 3 Hours Capital, Luna. We actually shorted Luna before it had even crashed. That's all still on Twitter. And then getting back in after FTX was quite a, I think, bold decision. But then again, for altcoins, for example, we missed the SEC dumpage that occurred with altcoins. So we don't catch everything, but we try and get the macro right, and we think everything else will fall in line. And we assess that we've done that. And ultimately, there's bright skies ahead for the next 12, potentially 24 months. And a crash will come. We agree with the bears on that. We just don't think it's yet. And we've got reasoning for that. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you. If you've enjoyed the content, like is appreciated, so is a comment. And I'll catch you in the next one. And do feel free to join the Patreon.